We'd like to thank everyone for joining us on the Denison Sports Network for the very first Call to the Hall. My name is Craig Hicks. I'm the Assistant Athletic Director for Communications at Denison. And tonight we are joined by our Director of the Varsity D Association, Mike Hills, and our 4 Varsity D Hall of Fame members from the class of 1972, Tom Jefferson; from the class of 1980, Nan Carney DeBord; from the class of 1990, Liz Cooper Krushena; from the class of 2005, Frederick Waddell. And we are just thrilled that all of you could join us tonight. And we hope that this Zoom call will be unlike all of the previous 1,000 that you've probably had since March. We've been without live sports for quite some time, even here at Denison. And we've had the opportunity to tell some new stories this fall, shining a light on some of our incredible Hall of Famers and our alumni. It's something that we're really excited to do. So we just want this to be a fun conversation amongst Denisonians. I'm sure Nan can tell you that no matter what era you've competed in, there is a common thread that links all of you together. And we see it every year when we have alumni days, come back, our alumni speak to our athletes. We see it in the thousands that tune into our live streams, that don't know maybe the athletes that are on the fields, but they feel a sense of pride and connection with those athletes. So again, we're just happy to have you all here tonight, and we're going to get things going. And we're going to start with Tom Jefferson, who is a track and field alum from the class of 1972. He was inducted into the Varsity D Hall of Fame in 1986. And Tom, would you tell us just a little bit about your journey to Denison, all the way from Newark, Ohio? I mean,
yeah, it was quite a trek. I guess if I'd been a cross-country runner, I could have run to Denison, but I did not intend to come to Denison, to tell you the truth. I was on my way to Miami of Ohio to run track. And one day after track practice, Bob Shannon cornered me at the track field and started talking about Denison. And, I hadn't really thought at all about Denison or coming to Denison, but, we had a conversation, and, we had a follow-up conversation, and I just was really impressed by him and some of the things he was saying. So he finally talked me into coming. Now, he didn't tell me that Denison didn't offer athletic scholarships at that time. So he had to come up with some money so I could come, but he came through, and that's how I ended up at Denison.
And so now that you know the old saying, records are meant to be broken, I want everyone watching this to know that Tom is still Denison's fastest man, and he still holds the record for the 100-meter dash. How's it feel to hold the record for that long? And again, that feels cemented up there. I mean, I've been staring at that record for years.
Well, I'm really kind of surprised because I know there's been some pretty good sprinters come to Denison after I left. Herm Frazier and Tony Thompson and Ed Colley. So I'm really surprised that that record's still there. So, but it's an honor, and it's it's kind of an achievement that you kind of look back on and say, this probably won't last that long, but it did. So I'm just kind of proud of that.
Mike, I'm going to hand it over to you and let you speak to our boss. So.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. So Nan, it's good to have you on the call. If you can somehow take your Director of Athletics cap off just for the next 40 minutes or so and just speak to us and the audience just as an alum. Does that sound okay? Sound like a plan?
That would be a lot of fun, actually. I would really enjoy that.
You probably never get much of an opportunity to take a break. So for those of you who are unaware, Nan Carney DeBord was a 2-sport star in basketball and field hockey at Denison before joining the college coaching ranks after her graduation in 1980. She went on to become one of the winningest college basketball coaches in Division III at her rival, Ohio Wesleyan, before she came home 10 years ago and became the athletic director at Denison. So Nan, it's great to have you here. I want to start just by taking you back to about 2001. You had just taken OWU to the Final Four in the NCAA tournament. Was there any part of you that ever thought that you might or could return to Denison? Was that on your radar back then, or did you think you'd still be at Ohio Wesleyan?
Mike, you most certainly understand as a former college athlete. you know, the beauty of athletics is just having the opportunity to be absorbed in the moment. And I have just been, I think I've been so fortunate, both as an undergrad and you know, the two sports. I think the sports centered me. You know, I grew up outside of Philadelphia in South Jersey, and I was, not that I'm mellow now, but I was, as they say, type AAA, really high strung, and the sport experience just really centered me, and it made me a better student, and made me a better friend and a better in all aspects of my life. And so, because I was able to absorb myself in the moment in the sport. And then when I went to coaching, I found the same thing. And as you know, when you get to the level of a Final Four, I mean, there's no time for thought. You know, we prepared, and we were the Cinderella team that year, and we prepared day in and day out, scouting reports, and you know, we were just sort of like, okay, where are we going next? And I forget the mileage. I should remember it, but we were on the road for the whole run. So when we finally made it to the, you know, that was quite a while ago. I had a 7-year-old in the photo, and a almost 1-year-old on my shoulder, because he was tired of dad holding him, and he wanted his mom. So in one of the pictures, you know, I've got 2 kids, and we've got the 3rd place trophy, and I've just been really fortunate to just love every aspect of my life during Denison, you know, in the 2 sports, and the mentors that I had, but also post Denison. I became a head coach at a very early age. Women in coaching, you know, were getting jobs, really. I was 22 or 23 years old as a head coach at a little small college in the panhandle of West Virginia. And I loved it. I loved it there. I went on to one of our arch rivals, and I was on the faculty and taught sports psychology and developed some leadership classes, and I loved it. I loved my students. I loved my athletes, but you know, life's about relationships, and I really love all of the relationships that I've made throughout. So I don't know if I was thinking about anything other than the moment at the time, which is a long-winded answer.
Well, we're sure glad that you found your way back to Granville. Was as you think about your career, you know, as a coach and as an administrator, was there something about your experience at Denison? Was there an aspect of your Denison education that kind of started you on the path to college athletics? Is this kind of what you thought you would be doing after you graduated from Denison?
Well, I was fortunate enough to take a January term as a junior biology major, but I went off course and took a January term as a coach of the assistant varsity basketball coach of the local high school. And that was weird 10 years ago to drop my son off, my younger son, at the middle school. That was the high school then. And it was like, oh, I remember stopping going, oh, wow, this is kind of strange. This is kind of how it all began. But as Thomas mentioned, and he's, and one of the, I had the opportunity to get to know Branch Rickey's grandson pretty well, and Jackie Robinson's daughter during my time at Ohio Wesleyan. And so therefore you've heard my favorite quote, it's not the honor you take with, but the heritage you leave behind. And I think of that when, you know, I was able to see Thomas's picture up on the wall, up on that old wall in that hallway outside of Livingston Gym, and where everybody's, you know, sweater was a different color, and there was no uniformity. And I remember also Bob Shannon crossed paths. He would always say, "Hey, Nan, how's it going?" And great game last night. And I was like, who is this guy? And he was encouraging, and he took the time to talk to me, even though, you know, I wasn't going to be playing for him. And of course I had wonderful coaching mentors as well. So I just was really fortunate to be inspired. And then there was something deep inside of me that said, I've got to continue on and hopefully through teaching and coaching, inspire others.
Great. Thanks, Nan.
Now I'm going to head over to Elizabeth Cooper Krushena, and I really want to thank you for joining us because I think you're going to add some unique perspective to tonight's call. I thought of you right away. And not only are you a Denison Hall of Famer, but you are a current Denison parent. And not only are you a current Denison parent, but I believe you're a parent, if you ask me, of a future Hall of Famer. And your son is a member of the baseball team, Will Krushena, All-American, tremendous player. And that's given you the opportunity to come back to campus, a little bit more in recent years. So tell me just a little bit about what it's been like reconnecting with Denison through your son.
Well, I want to thank you, Craig, for including me tonight. It's an honor, actually. It is a lot of fun. I have had a lot of fun reconnecting with Dennis and with Will. I have to admit, I'm really not the baseball expert. I'm much better at racing. So it's been a little bit of a learning curve, but it's been a lot of fun watching him play for Denison and just fulfilling his dream as well for baseball and as a student athlete.
So flipping over to swimming, you won a national championship in 1988, the 200 IM. You're the fifth Denison swimmer to win a national championship, but you were just the second female. So this is early in kind of Denison's rise up the ranks. And right now, Denison's clearly at the top. But at the time, you were kind of the chaser and on the way up. Yeah. Can you just take me back to that moment in time? You swam very early in Coach Perini's career. Take me back to what it's like to accomplish that ultimate goal, and achieve that. It's something that you work for all year long for that one weekend.
Well, it's true. I actually was Greg's first year of coaching, and it's awesome that he's still there and he's built the program to what it is today. I transferred to Denison. I started out in a D1 program, and it really wasn't very fulfilling for me personally. And I'm grateful to this day that Denison took a chance on me and accepted me into the school. And my dad was a Denison alum. He played baseball at Denison. My uncle is a Denison alum. So there was a family connection there. And I went to Denison, though, with hopes of achieving something personal. And I finished Denison with achieving something far greater than that. Denison gave me something I never dreamt, and that was a huge balance in my life. Denison taught me that it's not just about athletics. It's about succeeding in your sport, but also succeeding in the classroom and succeeding as a person. And I trained with Greg, and my goal was to achieve my personal best. My goal was not to win a national title at first. I thought I just wanted to be the best I could be. And the program was something I knew could help me get there. Greg is extremely talented and brings out the best in people, in athletes. And I was lucky enough that day I felt so prepared for my race. I had overcome multiple coaches, multiple programs throughout my career. I suffered, injuries like most athletes. I had surgery on my shoulder while I was at Denison. And so I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to, basically achieve my personal best. And the year before, my sophomore year, I got second at nationals. And from that moment on, I wanted to win, but moreover, I wanted to, basically be the fastest I could be. And so the day that my race happened, I got up on the blocks and I was like, I don't care if I get sixth, I'm going to swim my best time. And that's basically what I did. I was excited to swim my best time, and I was lucky enough that my best time won the event. So that's basically my experience. I have to say that winning was awesome, but it was also, for me, realizing that I can be a success in the pool and I can be a success in the classroom at Denison. And that was the best thing for me. It was just a balance finally, and being able to do both at the same time, which was my biggest accomplishment.
I think that is incredible to hear you say that, because I have heard other swimmers say nearly the same thing. And I can tell that Coach Perini in year 1 and Coach Perini in year, I think 32, right around there,
Yeah.
hasn't changed that much. His philosophy has always stayed the same, but be the absolute best you can be and not worry about, let the places fall where they may, but go out there and swim fast, drop time, and then see where they
Yeah, and just to go back to your original question about my son, obviously I'm proud that he's there. It was his choice to go to Denison. And from my perspective, all I ever wanted was for him to reach his personal best. And whether that is All-American or not, I didn't care. I just want him to walk away from Denison feeling like he accomplished everything he could accomplish. I knew deep inside that the program, the baseball program, and the current coach, Mike Deegan, had the capacity to bring that out in him. It's a phenomenal program. Coach Deegan's a phenomenal person. And my experience as a parent couldn't be better, because that program is the best program for my son. And I think he has realized that himself. I don't know if he really bought into it at first. I think he was a little like, wanted to create his own path and wasn't sure about everything, but I think he has realized that, and he's seen some success as well because of the quality of the program at Denison.
Thank you.
Now for one of our most recent Hall of Fame inductees, All-American golfer Fred Waddell. So here's a guy who loves golf so much he never left, still in the industries. Senior manager for golf ball product management with Titleist. And Fred, I hear your game's still in pretty good shape and you can still reach par or under at some point. I have to tell you, an alum just sent me an article where you're quoted extensively on the difference between the Titleist Pro V1 and the Titleist Pro V1X maybe, and spin, and I didn't understand half of it, and I'm a golfer, but
lucky for me, Mike, I'm better at talking about golf than I am playing.
Whatever ball I find in the woods, Fred, is the one that I normally play with. So when you played at Denison, Fred, your teams were some of the very best we've ever had in Denison's history. 2 of the years we finished 9th and 14th in the country, and that was in 2003, 2004. And I'm wondering if you can take the audience back to those years and tell us a little bit about what made those teams so great and so special to be a part of.
Boy, I mean, they were special years, and thank you for having me tonight. This is a real thrill to be with you, Liz, Nan, Tom, Craig, and Mike. There isn't a day that goes by I don't think about Denison. It's had a huge impact on my life. I met my wife Caroline there. When I think about those teams, they had the right mix of friendship and chemistry, but also competitiveness. I'm sure most of the audience isn't that familiar with college golf, but there's five players that play in each tournament, and you count the low 4 scores. But typically there'll be 8 or 10 people on a team, and week in, week out before each tournament, you'll qualify to identify those top 5 that go play each week. And we really had kind of 6 players who were always competing for 5 spots. And so we were great friends. But we wanted to win, we wanted to play, and that really brought out the best in us as golfers, day in, day out. And I think it was that really drove us in those 2 years. Those were my sophomore and junior years to accomplish what we accomplished. My freshman year, we were neck and neck with Otterbein for the last spot from the Midwest region for the national championship, and we lost. They had an older team. and understood why they got the nod. But it made us real hungry. We worked hard on our games over the summer. And when we came back, I think we won the first 5 out of 6 tournaments we played, or something like that. The fall of 2003, fall of 2004, fall of 2002, leading into that 2003 national championship. Right. And so we just kind of, busted loose. But even to this day, we're a number of us are still really close. And that 9th place finish, we lament we were in 3rd place heading into the final day. And didn't have our best day, but those 2 years, those 2 teams were incredible, and I think it was that mixture of friendship and healthy competition that really drove us to play the golf we were able to play.
And Fred, I know you still keep tabs on the teams, since you've graduated, and we've had some very strong teams, and over the last few years, we've kind of seen a renaissance. Both of our teams have been ranked in the top 25 of late. And could you tell the audience a little bit about, the Denison golf program and where you think it's heading in the coming years?
I think it's headed in a great direction, and I don't even mean that just recently. I think for the last number of years, better part of the last decade, with Nan kind of leading the charge to really put the Denison golf team not back on the map, but on the map. We've got a lot of great assets at our disposal. The golf course being number 1, it's a fabulous facility. I'm so glad the college owns it now. But I think Coach Grogan really has just done an amazing job taking that real Division I mentality to a Division III golf program. I was lucky enough to be able to speak to the team last spring, right as COVID hit, and it broke my heart that what was a great season for them ended really abruptly because of the pandemic. But I think the commitment from the school has just been incredible, and I couldn't be more proud as an alum to be associated with it, and hope. I know there's more great things to come, and hope that in small ways, my teammates and I, from what now feels like a long time ago, can keep contributing and helping to push it forward, because it's really special to all of us.
Great, thanks, Fred.
Now, in this portion of the call, we're just going to have some general questions for the group. So if you feel so inclined, go ahead and chime in, but I'll start things off. And I'd like for you to just tell us about one Denison mentor that really helped shape your college experience, if that's possible to narrow it down to one. Hold on a second. Tom, there you go.
Okay.
I can hear you now.
All right. For me, it had to be Coach Shannon. He's the main reason I came to Denison. He talked me into it. So, and he was, he kind of mentored me the whole time I was there. I really look back upon that time and some of the things he did for me, and some of the things that he kind of led me through, because at that time at Denison, there was a lot of, the civil rights movement was very heavy. There was a big anti-war movement in the country. There were a lot of Black students being very active throughout the country. And, my freshman class, there were 7 Black students in the entire freshman class. And there was only, I think, 5 in the class before mine, and 4 in the one before that, and 3 in the one before that. So my freshman year, there were only 20 Black students on the entire campus. And, I was myself, and I think Henry Duran were the only 2 Black athletes on the campus at that time. So, the university has come a long way since then, but it were trying times, and he was kind of a backdrop for me, or a backstop for me, to have somebody that I could talk to and kind of wade through some of the things we were going through. For me, just being there, and for, a lot of the Black students, a lot of things we were going through, just being in that type of environment. So it was definitely him. And I think the other person would have been Henry Duran. Henry was a football player. He played offense and defense, I think, for a while. And he was the founder, one of the founders of the Black Student Union. So he was kind of a student mentor to me because he was, I think, a junior when I came there. So those two people were probably the people that had the most influence on me when I was at Denison.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. And I can tell you that the things that the Black Student Union, now that you were a founder of, I believe, is doing some tremendous things on our campus. And it's such an important group for us, especially right now in these times. So thank you.
Well, the one thing that last year we celebrated the 50th anniversary of the Black Student Union. So that really ages me.
Legacy, strong.
Nan, a mentor?
Yeah. Yes, well, you know, there's one that you know well, and I have to say I could not differentiate because they serve very different roles. But once again, it was my field hockey coach and my basketball coach at that time. And my field hockey coach, you know, when you walk into my office, this is my home office, but my office, you know, you see, you know, it's decorated. Thankfully, I'm surrounded by wonderful people, obviously Craig and Mike, but also other coaches who decorated my office because that's not my thing. But, you know, it looks like, you know, it was quite it tells a story, you know, all of the things. And I try to have every sport represented in the office. So there's, you know, a golf ball in a little container. There's, you know, a track and field letter with a little fast running shoe through it. I've got everybody. But there were some tough times. And when I was in undergraduate, I was far from home. I didn't know, you know, I saw my first cornfield when I came out to Denison. And you know, like I often tell students who are looking at Denison that I wish for you stumbling blocks, because I believe we are very intentional about formulating mentors that will help you turn those stumbling blocks into stepping stones. Like Elizabeth mentioned Coach Deegan and Coach Perini and, you know, Craig Hicks and Mike Hills are incredible mentors, even though they're not in a traditional coaching role. But my field hockey coach, you know, I was thinking of leaving, and I don't usually tell this story, but and she said, you know, I was a captain of the team as a sophomore, and I didn't share it with anyone else. She just noticed I was a little off one day, and she said, what's on your mind? And this was in the time of, you know, athletics, when we talk about Title IX and in terms of educational equity. You know, I was living that history. And so, you know, when I came from high school, I received one of the first athletic scholarships, but there were no divisions. So when I came to Denison, you know, we were competing against Ohio State, Ohio U, Miami. I mean, all the Division I's, Davis and Elkins. I remember in field hockey, I met Woody Hayes by mistake in an away game, which is a great story. If we need one later, it's pretty funny. But my field hockey coach said, well, you know, you can leave, you know, and it was sort of like the story, the grass is greener, why don't you water your own? And, but she said, you'd be starting over. And, you know, I was thinking about my first year and I was like, oh no, that would be awful. And she just talked about all of the academic benefits. You came to Denison to be a dentist. Isn't that funny? And it has a great biology department and great acceptance rate to medical school. You're set up, you know, academically, you're doing really well. Your peers trust you and you have great friendships and relationships. You know, life is never going to be perfect, or no place is going to be perfect. And so she really took the time to sit down and sort this out. And it was just, you know, I'll never forget that is for as long as I live. And she lost the battle to cancer, but was able to stop by my home in Delaware at the time and meet my first son and hold him. And I was able to thank her for that. And then the second I was able to work with, and that was my basketball coach, Lynn Schweizer, who retired after 44 years. And when I had Lynn as a basketball player, we have the most fun story. I was looking for a t-shirt. I couldn't throw it out from one of my tournaments during her time. But she was probably the smallest person on the squad. And she would, she was ahead of her time in terms of strength and conditioning and nutrition. She was way ahead of her time because her background was swimming and diving. She was a national diving coach of the year. So she gave us that perspective as we are, eating M&Ms and drinking this beverage called Tab. And, it was awful. I don't know how we could ever compete, but, she was well beyond her time, and really used the platform of basketball to teach us life skills. And one of the common threads I'm hearing is what Frederick just said, the idea of teamwork makes the dream work. She never allowed any one person in our teams to, she never spoke of one person more than another, dependent upon their statistics. And we were very diverse. We were from different places. We had very diverse interests, and she made us a collective unit. And for that, she will forever be a wonderful friend and mentor.
Now, when you think about old times and coming back with friends, and there's got to be some stories. I need a story that first comes to mind for you when you think of competing at Denison. Any takers?
Well, I'll think of one. On the indoor track season, we had that indoor track that was clay. I don't know if anybody remembers that thing, but it was only like 300 yards around. So when we ran the 60-yard dash or the 60-yard hurdles, they had to open the door so you could decelerate. And in the winter, it was always cold out there, and there was kind of a hill that you had to run up in the snow. So that was always something that just stuck in my mind. So why do you build a track that's not long enough for anybody to run? So, but that was one of my more interesting experiences at Denison. But it was always to our advantage when other schools came there, because they didn't have any idea what was going to happen when that door went up. So
that's a great story.
Yes, and you also had those steel girders that were very close to your head if you were on the that
you were in the outside lane, you were ducking all the time.
The facilities are just a little bit nicer now. You can run the 60 straight and you don't have to go out a door. So
it's a fantastic facility now compared to what we were looking at then.
Well, similar to Tom, in the winter, the golf team, we practice indoors in Mitchell, which, is a beautiful facility, even more amazing now. But they would lower the batting cages for the softball and baseball teams over those tennis courts just on the inside of the track. And we'd raise one side and bring some mats out and hit balls into these half open nets. It was a good way to practice your swing and stay loose, and someone would take a video of what you're doing. But every now and then we just open up a 9-iron or a wedge or something, and just obviously by accident hit one over the net and break up the women's tennis practice, just to keep them on their toes. So, it wasn't probably the best idea, but just another kind of way that we always were having a good time.
You were just practicing your flop shots, right?
Correct. Sometimes you got to hit them over trees, Craig.
Mm-hmm.
Did Coach Burling ever come and yell at you, Fred, or your teammates for breaking up the practice?
He absolutely did, and we just pointed at each other. So
plausible deniability.
Year one of Coach Perini, Liz. There's got to be something. You got to give us something here.
A story.
First team meeting. Something. Year one.
I have a story. So he never really actually would encourage us to be overly competitive, but you knew that it was there. It was kind of just an aura that he sort of portrayed. And this is before I won. This was conference that year. And he really wanted me to win conference. And there was one or two girls from, let's just call it the school next door that wears a lot of purple. They definitely were dominating this particular race. And I felt a little pressure to beat them, I will say. And so I won't actually give him credit for bringing this out in me. I think a lot of it did come from me, but I actually spit in the lane of the girl next to me before the race. Yeah, I am not sure if this portrays me in the best light, but it definitely portrayed the amount of competitiveness that was going on at that moment to beat Kenyon. And it definitely freaked her out, which I think it had the impact I was hoping it would have. Right before we stood up on the blocks, I did that. And the ironic thing was I had kind of forgotten I had done that until a girl that was in my daughter's grade went to Denison to swim. And apparently Greg Perini told that story to the team. And I had forgotten this completely until she comes back and tells my daughter that her mother did this. So I was a little bit sold out on that one, but just a little bit of a story as to the kind of competitiveness that was definitely there to win and beat Kenyon that year. We hadn't beaten them at that time. So
spitting in the lane is kind of akin to maybe flipping your bat after hitting a home run and staring down the pitcher.
Yeah, a little bit. I think
Yeah.
a little bit, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Fierce competitor. Yeah.
Now, most of us can only dream to be inducted into our college's Hall of Fame. And so I'm wondering if the group, you guys can talk a little bit about how you first, if you can recall, how you first learned that you were being inducted. And since you're all, a little bit removed now, a few years from being inducted into the Varsity D Hall of Fame, maybe have you had a time to kind of reflect? And, Fred, it wasn't too long ago for you, but maybe, everybody, if you had an opportunity to kind of reflect and really what it means to be among the top 1% of all the student athletes who've ever come to Denison.
Well, I can say that I am extremely proud that I'm in the Hall of Fame. But I have to tell another little story here. When I was inducted into the Hall of Fame, I had the pleasure of being 8 months pregnant. So I got to walk out onto the football field feeling pretty much about as unathletic as I had ever felt in my entire life. And I got to wave at the, stands full of people, and I felt about as big as a whale. So I had a wonderful day, but I'll tell you, it was a little, and plus I was emotional, so I got to do a speech, and I don't even remember what I said, but I'm sure it was way over the top with emotions. But yeah, so I got inducted when I was about 8 months pregnant, 1 month from delivering my third child. So.
That's a great story. Nan?
Well, I was fortunate to have one of my mentors give me a call. Lynn called me, and I think it was actually on a landline. We remember those things, and I just I said, well, thank heavens, it was before the conference and we had any statistics. Because when I played basketball, there was no 3-point line, and we played with what's the size of the men's ball now, and now the women's ball is a little bit smaller. So it was, when I went into coaching, I was like, gosh, it would have been a lot easier to shoot. And but there was no 3-point line, and the ball was pretty big. But I was just I just felt this sense of awe and humility that has never left. And I think I was telling Frederick one time, because I was just so excited for him and everybody since I've taken this role, is that the greatest gift in coming full circle in 10 years is the friendships that you make. Like now I'm counting you as a friend, Thomas and Frederick and Elizabeth, and through this commonality that we have, not just in the Hall of Fame, but as Denisonians. And I've learned so much through my peers on the senior staff, and just individuals that have laterally mentored me as I've come back into this role, be it Julie Hout, be it Laura Frame, and many others that are Denisonians. And so I just, the pride, I talk a lot about pride, passion, and purpose. And I felt all three of those on that very phone call on that very day. And it was just really special to have it be Lynn. And then once again, when I came back full circle to have Lynn on my staff, you can imagine that, right? You're Coach Shannon, what do you say? Well, I'm your boss now, but you can do whatever you want. You tell me what you want to do. Like, what do you do, right? But no, it was great to have that time together.
Great. Thomas, do you remember when you first learned that you were being inducted?
I really don't. I was living in Chicago then, and I think that Coach Shannon may have contacted my brother, who still lives in Newark, and he contacted me, and I think that's how we hooked up. But you know, like everybody else, it's a great honor. You know, when you're an athlete, you kind of look, you know, you want to be as good as you can be, but you don't ever think you'll be immortal in terms of being inducted into a Hall of Fame. And so it was a great honor. It was a double honor for me because I was also inducted into the Hall of Fame at Newark High School a few years before that. So it was just as meaningful to me to be inducted into Denison as it was to be inducted in my high school. So it's a great honor, and I think we all kind of feel that feeling.
And Fred, again, you were the most recent inductee of the group, so hopefully you can remember when you first learned of your induction, and again, hasn't been that long, but you know, over the last couple of years, have you had an opportunity to kind of think about it?
Yeah, it was very, very neat. It was January of 2018, which is surprisingly a busy time of year in the golf industry. And I was home over the weekend, and my wife had opened a letter from Denison thinking it was probably a solicitation for money. And it was that letter, and she said, you should take a look at this. And I read it, and I was just, it was really special. You know, I like I said, I think about Denison every day. I think about my experience there, certainly as a student, but probably more as a golfer. And my brother, who played golf at Bucknell, we're very close. He had just learned he was going to go into the Bucknell Hall of Fame as a golfer. And so to do it together in that year was pretty neat. A day later, I left for the PGA show, which is a golf trade show in Orlando. It's 5 days. It's a very long week. You're on your feet. You do a lot of media. It's exhausting. But I can remember being down on the floor there and just kind of in a couple quiet moments reflecting on that, thinking of that, and it was very kind of it made me happy. It was energizing. And then of course the weekend, which gosh, it was only 2 years ago, was really, really special. So yeah, absolute thrill. That's
great. And maybe just kind of switching gears a little bit with each of you. And I know some of you have had the opportunity to speak with some of the current student athletes at Denison. And Craig and I are obviously hoping there'll be a number of current student athletes who will be watching this YouTube video when it is posted. But if you were speaking with some current athletes, whether it's on your team or just any Denison student athlete, is there certain advice that you might give them, things that maybe you picked up during your 4 years of competing at Denison?
I don't think I realized it at the time, but in reflecting on it, you know, in golf, it is a weird sport in college in that there's an individual element, but you're really only as successful as your team. Is to just enjoy the process, right? When we focus on outcomes, we tend to not do our best, but focus on the process. I think what made our teams successful, every year I was there, but those particular years, 04 03 and 04, was that we were just focused, day to day, week to week on getting better and pushing each other. And at the end of the day, the tournaments in a lot of ways were just execution of all the things we practiced. So focus on the process and make sure you're enjoying it, because you will miss it when it's gone. I certainly miss it every day. And don't lose sight of that, because sadly it does come to an end.
You did play a sport, Fred, right, that you can continue to play, and Nan probably a little bit harder maybe to play some field hockey, and but I know you have an opportunity to speak to student athletes almost every day, literally every day, and I know you've spoken to a lot of the teams during your time as athletic director. Is there a certain theme or piece of advice, a thread that you give regardless of which team you're speaking to?
I think what I try to model is being your authentic self. There's a lot, it's easy to be fake and fraud and phony, but it's really hard. But what is long lasting is friendship with authenticity, and develop an attitude for gratitude. I think you've heard me say that just a few times. And so often, our athletes right now have been so gracious. And I think because during COVID, so many of their friends from other institutions are not even able to practice, and they're doing it. I mean, they're following the rules and they're getting it right. And I went to a softball scrimmage Friday night after the long day of meetings and whatnot. And I brought my chocolate lab that might as well be a therapy dog. She's my therapy. And all the football players stopped by and got a little love for my dog, and then said, thank you for letting us, we know what you're doing behind the scenes. I was like, it was just such a surprise, and it was so awesome. But, I think back to, our current chaplain, we figured out, Phoebe Myram, we were talking one day out at a field hockey or lacrosse game, and she said, well, wait, you played field hockey in what years? She said, yeah, I think you were teammates with my mother. And I was like, Myram. She said, no, her name was McLennan. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, we weren't only teammates. Like we had travel rooms when we traveled. And so I went home that night and found this old desk in the second drawer in the corner. And there was a picture of the four of us and our travel mates that we had. And we were just silly. And coach would come in and do room checks. And instead of being in, two double beds, we all would get in one bed and pretend we were asleep. And there's this picture that the coach took. And I still have it today. And it was her mother. And I thought about that as I looked at the picture. If that wasn't authenticity, I don't know what was. But, I don't know how to lead any other way. I believe in leading from the heart. And that will carry you. Sometimes it's a little corny. Maybe this is a little mushy, but I think our student athletes know I sincerely love them. I believe in them. I knew they could do this, but they've exceeded my expectations in the manner in which they've done so.
You've clearly modeled unbelievable behavior in Nan, and I think it's really reflected. I couldn't agree more, and I'm sure Craig would say the same thing. I think our student athletes, under extraordinarily difficult circumstances over this past year, my heart breaks for the swimmers, for a lot of the athletes last year. They were poised, as I think a lot of people know, probably going to win 2 national team championships, and that got canceled. And I did happen to walk by when Nan, you, and I believe it was President Weinberg were telling the swimmers and divers that their season was over, and that was a hard one. It was hard enough just to see it, let alone be in there. But I think they've done an amazing job. And Elizabeth, Thomas, any advice that you might give, Elizabeth? I don't know if spitting in the next lane would be part of, or maybe be the first thing you'd lead with.
I don't think so.
Well,
I guess, first of all, I would like to say that my heart goes out to those swimmers whose seasons got canceled. I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine going through what they went through, the hard work that they put in, the goals they set, and then to have it all taken away. And I know everyone lost something in this pandemic, okay, especially the athletes. But that one really definitely hit home for me. I can relate. I mean, I can't relate actually, but I can relate to a certain degree that I know what kind of training they did, and I know what they were gearing for, and to have it taken away, that had been heartbreaking for them. I guess that leads me into my answer to your question, and that is they should walk away knowing that it's not just about it's not just about one race, it's the culmination of 4 years. And they should know that in their hearts, they won that national title, because everyone, all of us alums, knew that they had that in the bag. So they have to know that they were the best that year, and they did achieve goals that year, and that's another thing, is goals. And if I were to speak with the student athletes today, I would say keep your goals in focus and let them change if they need to change, because your goals will change from your first year to your fourth year. Your goals will change, and don't let a lot of the little things get in the way of those goals. Keep your focus, because it's easy to lose track of what you want to walk away with for the rest of your life. You've got 4 years to accomplish what you set out to do from the minute you started that sport. And you want to be able to look back on those 4 years and feel fulfilled. So my advice would be to keep your goals in sight. Don't lose track of them, no matter what happens in the 4 years that you're at Denison, and do everything that you can in your power to achieve them. And if you don't achieve them, at least you can walk away and knowing that you did everything you could in your power to try to achieve them.
That's great. Thomas?
Well, I think I would say many of the things that everyone else has already said, but I think I would also have a slightly different approach, because as a Black athlete, if I were talking to other Black athletes, I would have to tell them that you can't just be an athlete anymore these days. When you see what the NBA players have done, and you see what the NFL players have done, you have to be more than just an athlete in this country anymore. There are too many issues and problems out there for you to just get into a cocoon of just playing sports. So I would encourage them to get involved, particularly in the Black Student Union and other, activist type of activities, because, athletes set a tone and are looked up to, particularly in the Black community, and they have to kind of carry that on even as college athletes, because people are going to be looking at what they do slightly differently than they might look at other students. So I think they have to keep that in focus, and, and not let all those things hinder what they're trying to do, but just be aware of those things also.
Great, thank you. Thank you to everyone for your good words of advice.
Yeah, and we'd like to thank all of you for joining us tonight. This has been just a wonderful experience for me and Mike to set this up, and we thank you for being our first in the Call to the Hall series. We want you to know that our doors are always open, even in COVID. Mask up, come on in, say hello. We would love to see you. And we hope that we are back competing real soon, and we know that all of you will be following along. So for Denison Sports Network and Call the Hall, I'm Craig Hicks. Thanks to Mike. Thank you, Nan, Elizabeth, Thomas, Frederick, for joining us tonight. Go Big Red.
Thank you,
Go Big
Craig.
Red.
Go Big Red.